You are looking at my tag, for I had no history, became a thing to be consumed, reproduced, peace beyond to those who recognize my humanity, my non-descendancy, my anti-mercurial state. I shall be waged according to the stillness of my breath.
For a long time now, I've been working and thinking about how to reconfigure British history and put slavery and race back into British history, because colonialism has been kind of written out of the national narrative. This particular project used the compensation records, which are the records of the £20 million which were paid by the British government to the slave owners at the time of abolition. So just trying to uncover what was actually going on and who was benefiting in what ways and whose labour was being expropriated in what ways and whose bodies were being stolen and violated, all of that seems terribly important.
I grew up in the South of the United States, where the legacy of that horrific legal slavery and the slavery that came after the abolition of slavery, because there was still slavery that continued into the 20th century, was because it was unresolved. I mean, it was a botched emancipation. The slavery came to an end, but it didn't come to an end, and it certainly didn't allow people who had been in slavery to have decent lives. You know, there was no economic justice, there was no access to education, there was no access to citizenship, there was this constant violence and discrimination and real racism. And so peace could never really arrive.
The minute the slave trade finished and the minute emancipation was legalized, people start covering up. And decades of cover-ups are done of people's actual involvement in these practices. So to start doing the work of uncovering is a very considerable task in itself. And it's like opening the books to make possible a conversation about peace and reconciliation. But if you don't open the books, there's no basis on which to talk.
We have to start looking at history, start realizing that unless now we learn to accommodate one another better, and that means compassion, not in any sense of feeling or softness, but in a sense of saying their wants and needs are as important as my own, we are not going to have a viable world, I fear. So this is a huge question, and of course when you're frightened and bombs are dropping down upon you, it's hard. But the minute we start dehumanizing the enemy, and that's when the atrocities begin, and that creates more conflict.
The beautiful thing is that, you know, Kant was one of those leaders in thinking, in the same way that early abolitionists were leaders in thinking. So that they had looked at things as they are, and they had said, no, we must redefine this reality, because it's not the right of the strength of my country, or the right of the strength of my king to do this thing. We have to turn it in a different way and redefine it and say, that's aggression. That's still slavery, but we now understand slavery as, you know, the destruction of an autonomous being just like me. In a sense, it's about the projection of equality and the right of peace to the other, whether it's a state or a person.
Moeder aarde, ik luister naar je stem. Altijd. En waar ik ook ga. Het pad waarop ik reis is jouw pad. Geef me rust, bodem en vertrouwen. en geef me verhalen. Elk mens heeft verhalen nodig. Laat mij herinneren wat er in mijn cellen verborgen ligt. Laat mij herinneren wie ik had moeten zijn. Laat me niet vergeten wie ik geworden ben. Laat mij mijn geschiedenis onthouden.